There are things that people did for each other that never got seen. Not because they were hidden. They were not hidden. They were simply ordinary. They were the daily practice of a love that had been going on long enough that the practice was indistinguishable from the regular texture of the life, and that the people inside it had stopped consciously noting, because you stopped consciously noting the things that were simply how things were. They were the invisible acts: the coffee made before the alarm went off, the umbrella left on the car seat for a rainy Tuesday, the specific, small, "this person knows me" quality of a thing done correctly for a person who had been known long enough to know exactly what correctly looked like. Most of those things never got seen by anyone except the two people they happened between, which was the right audience and the complete audience and the only audience they required. But occasionally, a survey question on a Family Feud stage asked what your partner did that showed you they loved you, and the person at the podium answered honestly. And what they said produced in the room the specific, warm, full attention, awe quality of a room receiving something that was genuinely good. Not dramatically good, not surprisingly good. Just the ordinary good of two people knowing each other well and doing the things that knowing each other well produced. And occasionally the partner, standing beside the person who had just described the thing, had an expression that was funnier and more complete and more revealing than anything the room had planned for. And the partner's expression produced in Steve Harvey the specific, full, can't help it laugh. The one that arrived before the professional laugh could intercept it. And Steve Harvey lost it in the warm, entirely genuine, "this is the funniest and most touching thing simultaneously" way, which was the specific, rare. Only available when both things happened at once quality, and the room was in both things simultaneously, and it was the best kind of afternoon. This is a story about that kind of afternoon. About a woman named Brenda and a man named Gary and 29 years of the invisible acts, and the one Tuesday when one of those acts was described on a game show stage to 300 people, and Steve Harvey and Gary's face, which was the face that finished the story. Hit that like button and subscribe right now before we go any further, because this channel is here for exactly these stories, for the invisible acts and the faces that finished them, and we come back with one every single week. Now let us talk about Brenda and Gary. Brenda Acaffer was 54 years old and was a high school English teacher in Nashville, Tennessee, who had been teaching for 27 years and who was, in the specific, and pointed at way that the best teachers were, exactly the right person for the work she had chosen to do. She taught juniors and seniors, the specific, 17 and 18-year-old quality of students who were old enough to read difficult things, and not yet old enough to have developed the full set of defenses that adults developed against difficult things, which produced, in a good English classroom, the specific, open, "this is hitting me" quality that the literature was supposed to produce, and that Brenda was very good at creating the conditions for. She was warm in the direct, specific, "I see you" way, the teacher's warmth, the one that was organized around seeing the specific student rather than the general one. She was funny in the warm, dry, "I have read enough books to know that most of human nature has been documented" quality that came from spending one's professional life inside the full range of the human comedy as it had been transcribed by writers. She was direct. She had from 27 years of telling students the true thing about their writing, the kind thing and the true thing together, which was the harder thing but the more useful thing, the specific, practiced quality of someone who had learned to say the true thing in the form that made it most available to the person who needed to receive it. She was married to Gary. They had been married for 29 years. The invisible acts had been going on for 29 years, and she had been receiving them for 29 years. And she knew all of them by heart in the way that you knew all the things that were simply how things were. And she had never described them to a room of 300 people before this afternoon. Gary Acaffer was 57 and was a logistics manager for a distribution company in Nashville. A man who spent his professional life organizing the movement of things from where they were to where they needed to be. In the specific, organized, nothing wasted. The route is optimized quality of someone who had been finding the most efficient path between 2 points for 22 years. He was warm in the grounded, present, "I am here when I am here" way, not effusive, not showy, but genuinely, entirely present when he was present, which was the form of warmth that 29 years of marriage had taught Brenda to recognize as the most durable kind. It was funny in the specific, oblique, arrives from an unexpected direction way that required you to be paying attention to catch, which Brenda had been paying attention long enough to catch consistently, and which she found as reliably funny on the 29th year of catching it as she had on the first year. He did not know that Brenda was going to describe one of the invisible acts. He had not thought to ask what she would say when the category came up. He had not imagined that the category would come up. He was about to find out that the category had come up, and that she had answered honestly, and that his face was going to do the thing that his face did when Brenda said the accurate, warm, specific thing about him in a room he had not expected her to say it in. Which was the face that was the combination of being seen and being glad and being slightly caught and being entirely himself all at once. Which was the face that produced Steve Harvey's laugh. Their daughter Nadia, 26, was a first-year medical student who had her mother's directness and her father's organizational efficiency, and her own, entirely proprietary. This is what medicine is for quality that she had been developing since she was 12, and that was going to make her an extraordinary physician, and that was currently making her an exhausted first-year medical student who was here because her mother had asked, and because you were present for the things your mother asked you to be present for. Brenda's sister Yolanda, 51, was a social worker who had the warm, direct. I have been watching these two for 29 years quality of a sibling who had the complete external picture, and who was here because she was always where Brenda was. And Gary's brother Philip, 54, who was an electrician who had known Gary since they were born and who had the 54-year-long view. I know everything about my brother quality, and who was going to be the one who confirmed Gary's face was accurate when Steve Harvey looked for confirmation. The application had been submitted by Nadia, who had submitted it because she had thought her parents would be excellent at it, and because she had thought the afternoon would be good for them. The warm, let us celebrate these two people quality of a daughter who found her parents' marriage overall worth celebrating. She had not known about the category. Nobody had known about the category. The category had simply arrived in the third round the way survey categories arrived, which was on the schedule and without advance notice. The pregame was warm. Steve Harvey moved through both families with the customary attention and arrived at Brenda with the genuine, curious quality he brought to people who were going to have something real to say. He asked about the English teaching. She described it with the warm, direct, what the work actually was quality. I put difficult books in front of young people at the exact moment in their lives when the books are most likely to produce something lasting in them. He said, that sounds like timing is the whole thing. She said, timing is everything in literature. He said, how do you know when the timing is right? She said, you watch for when they are not yet defended against it. He said, defended. She said, young people build defenses against difficult things. Adults have them fully formed. Juniors and seniors are in the window where the defenses are still partial. He said, and the books get in. She said, and the books get in. He said, you have been doing this for 27 years. She said, yes. He said, what keeps it from feeling the same every year? She said, the students are always new to it. He said, even if you have taught the book 20 times. She said, especially then. He said, because you have 20 years of knowing what the book does and they are the first time the book does it. She said, exactly. He said, that is a beautiful way to teach. She said, it is the only way I know how. He received this. He moved on. He asked Gary about himself. Gary described the logistics work with the organized, efficient, nothing wasted quality, efficient in the describing as in everything. Steve Harvey asked, how would you describe being married to a person who puts difficult books in front of young people for 27 years? Gary thought for a moment. He said, it makes her very good at knowing when you are ready to hear something. He said it in the warm, I have just described something accurate voice. He said, she waits for the right moment, like the books. Steve Harvey said, she waits for when you are not yet defended against it. Gary said, yes, he said, and then she says the thing. He said, and you hear it. Steve Harvey said, has this been going on for 29 years? Gary said, since the second date. He said it in the warm, this is simply accurate voice. Steve Harvey said, she has been finding the window for 29 years. Gary said, yes. He said, I'm a fortunate man. He said it in the plain, I believe this to be true voice. Steve Harvey received it. He filed it. The game began. The first 2 rounds were warm and competitive. Both families played well. Brenda was excellent. The English teaches what is actually being said, and what does it mean intelligence applied to survey questions with the warm, direct, first time the book does it quality of someone for whom every question was worth receiving with full attention. Gary was organized and efficient. Nadia was sharp and precise. Yolanda was warm and direct. Philip had the 54-year-long view brother quality applied to the survey with the specific. I know how people work accuracy of someone who had been inside the full range of how Gary worked for 54 years. Third round. Second question. Category. Things your partner does that shows you they love you without saying it. The category arrived with the warm, knowing, the room recognizes this quality that this kind of category produced. Both families answered the first several questions with the warm, recognizing, yes, mine does that answers that the category was designed to produce. Correct answers landed. The board filled. It was Brenda's turn. She said, "He charges my phone." She said it in the specific, plain, this is the answer voice, not the survey answer I have calculated will do well voice. The answer that arrived from 29 years of receiving the thing, which was as plain and as complete as the receiving had made it. She said, "Every night before I go to sleep, he checks my phone, and if it is below 50%, he puts it on the charger. I never ask him to, he never mentions it. I just always wake up to a full battery." She said it in the warm, organized, this is the account voice. She said, "I have been waking up to a full battery for 29 years. The board did not have it. The board had more affectionate things, bigger gestures, broader categories. The board had not anticipated the specific, precise, 29 years of checking the phone act. Steve Harvey looked at the board. He looked at Brenda. He looked at Gary. Gary's face was doing the thing. The specific, I did not know she was going to say that face. The specific combination of being seen and being glad and being caught and being entirely himself face. The face that was, in its specific form, the confirmation of the 29 years of the invisible act. The face that said, "Yes, I do that. I have always done that. I did not know she knew I did it in quite that way. I did not know it meant what it meant to her. I am completely seen, and I am entirely okay with being seen." That face. The face that lasted exactly 4 seconds on Gary's face before he caught it, and which Steve Harvey saw in all 4 seconds of it, and which produced in Steve Harvey the specific, before the professional can intercept it, laugh. The full, warm, can't help it. This is the funniest and most touching thing simultaneously laugh. Steve Harvey lost it. Not dramatically, warmly. Completely. In the way that a man lost it when something hit both the funny part and the good part at exactly the same moment, and when the two things arriving simultaneously produced the specific, irresistible, entirely genuine response of someone in the presence of something that was both and that he could not resist. He laughed with his whole face. He looked at Gary's face and he laughed. He looked at the room. He said, "Did everyone see his face?" He said it between the laughing. He said, "Did everyone see that?" He looked at Gary, who was now doing the slightly caught, warmly defensive, "This is how I look" face of someone who had been seen doing something he did not know was visible. Steve Harvey said, he did not know she was going to say that. He said it in the warm, obvious, "This is simply what happened" voice. He did not know, and then she said it, and his face, he stopped. He looked at the room. He said, "I have been doing this show for 14 years. That face is in my top 5. He said it with the full, warm, entirely genuine quality of a man who had been given something, and who was not going to pretend he had not received it. Top 5 faces in 14 years. The room was in it. The warm, full, both things simultaneously quality, the funny and the good that produced the specific laugh that was also something else, the laugh that was also love, the laugh that arrived when you were watching two people who knew each other very well and who were in this public room more nakedly in the knowing than they had anticipated. Steve Harvey said when he had recovered enough to say things, 31. He said it to Gary directly. "She has been waking up to a full battery for 29 years. He said, "She knows you do it." He said, "She has known for a long time." He said, "And it is what she said when someone asked what you did that showed you loved her without saying it." He said, 29 years of checking the phone." He said it in the warm, this is the account voice. He said, "That is not a small thing. That is the most specific description of daily love I have heard this year." He said, "The phone on the charger." He said, "The full battery every morning." He said, 29 years. He looked at Gary. He said, "Your wife just told 300 people and me that the thing you do that shows you love her is put her phone on the charger." He said, "How does that feel?" He said it in the warm, I genuinely want to know voice. Gary received the question. He was in the warm, slightly recovered, I am going to answer honestly quality of a man who had been caught and who was going to account for the catching with the full honest. I did do that quality of someone whose face had already confirmed the account. He said, "Like I have been doing something right for 29 years without knowing anyone noticed." He said it in the quiet, warm, this is simply true voice. He said, "I never thought about it as a thing I was doing." He said, he paused. He said, "She forgets. She gets busy, she gets tired, she puts the phone down without plugging it in. And then if I don't, she wakes up and the battery is low and the day starts wrong." He said, "It takes 10 seconds. He said, "It seemed like the right thing to do." He said it in the flat, organized, the root is optimized voice of a logistics manager who had found the 10-second fix and who had been applying the 10-second fix for 29 years. "I did not know she thought of it as," he looked at Brenda. He said, "I did not know it was that." He said it in the specific, I am receiving new information voice. Brenda said, "It is that." She said it in the warm, direct, this is the complete account voice. You make the coffee before the alarm. You leave the umbrella on the passenger seat when rain is in the forecast. You check the phone. She said, you have been doing these things for 29 years, and I know all of them, and they are all that. She said, they are all exactly that. She said it with the warm, specific 27 years of teaching the accurate true thing quality of someone who knew how to say the accurate thing in the form that made it most available to the person who needed to receive it. She said, you are a very good husband, Gary. She said it plainly, as a fact, as the most accurate description of the available evidence. Gary received this. He was in the quiet, full, been seen, and glad quality. He said, I try. He said it in the plain, organized, I do the available things voice. I try to do the things that help. He said it in the flat, logistics manager voice. The optimized route quality applied to 29 years of being beside this woman, finding the 10-second things, doing the 10-second things, because the 10-second things were available, and the available things were the things to do. Steve Harvey received this entire exchange with the warm, full, both things simultaneously quality. He was in the specific, this is why I do this show quality, the quality of the moments that arrived in the room that had not been scheduled and that were better than anything scheduled could have been. He said, she said, you are a very good husband. He said, I do the things that help. He said it in the flat, reporting voice, putting it in the room. He said, that is 29 years. He said, the phone on the charger and I try and the full battery and I do the things that help. That is 29 years. He said it again. That is what 29 years looks like from the inside, small things, 10 seconds, done correctly every day. He said, I want the room to hear that. He said it to the audience and to the cameras and to anyone watching. The phone on the charger, the umbrella on the passenger seat, the coffee before the alarm. He said, that is the love. He said, not the grand gesture, not the speech, the phone on the charger, the 10 seconds every day. For 29 years. He looked at the room. He said, write that down. He said it with the warm, entirely earnest, this matters voice. Write that down. He looked at Philip, Gary's brother, at the end of the podium. He said, sir, has he always been like this? Philip said, since he was about 12. He said it in the warm, I have watched him do this his entire adult life voice. He said, he does things for people. He finds the 10-second fix and he applies it. He has always been like that. He said, you find a problem and you solve it. That is Gary. He said it with the warm, 54-year-long view accuracy. Steve Harvey looked at Gary. He said, logistics manager. Gary said, yes. Steve Harvey said, your whole life has been finding the route and optimizing it. Gary said, yes. Steve Harvey said, including the marriage. Gary said, yes. He said it in the warm, this is simply accurate voice. He said, especially the marriage. He said, the marriage has the most roots. He said it in the warm, dry, this has been my observation voice. The room received the laugh. Steve Harvey received the laugh. He said, the marriage has the most roots. He said it to the room. He said, I want that man in the logistics business of my life immediately. The room laughed again. Brenda said in the warm, dry, I have been in the logistics business of his life for 29 years voice. There is a waiting list. The room gave her everything it had. Steve Harvey said, there should be. He said it with the full, warm, glad laugh. He said, let's play Family Feud. He said it in the warm, everything is good quality of a man who had been given an afternoon that was good from the beginning and that had just gotten better. He said it with the specific, I am very glad I am in this room quality of a host who had been in a great many rooms and who recognized the good ones. The game was excellent. Brenda was extraordinary, the English teacher's intelligence in full deployment, right at the rate of someone who had been reading what was actually being said for 27 years and who was reading the survey with the same warm, full attention. Gary was organized and efficient and right at the high. The route is optimized rate of someone who had found the correct path and who was taking it. Nadia was precise and sharp. Yolanda was warm and direct. Philip had the 54-year accuracy of a brother who knew how people worked because he had been watching one specific person work for 54 years. They won the main game in the specific, organized, all the routes optimized way of a team that had Gary in it. Fast money. Brenda walked to the podium. She walked to it with the 27-year teacher's walk, the upright, forward-facing, I have been at the front of rooms for 27 years walk that was simply how she walked now. Steve Harvey looked at her from across the stage. He said, 27 years, the books get in when the defenses are partial. He said, and 29 years of the phone on the charger. He looked at her with the warm, direct, I have been in this room with you and I have something to say quality. He said, you knew what to say when the category came up. You said the true thing, the specific 29-year this is what love looks like thing. He said, let's see what 27 years of knowing the true thing looks like in 20 seconds. Brenda said, start the clock. He hit the button. Brenda Ackafer answered 5 Family Feud survey questions in 20 seconds with the warm, direct, 27-year accumulated intelligence of an English teacher, who had spent her career understanding what was actually being said, and who applied this to the survey with the same first time the book does it full attention, and the same window for when the defenses are partial accuracy, and the same warm, specific, this is the true thing quality that she brought to everything she did. She was right. 4 answers were number 1. Her 5th answer, delivered at 15 seconds in Brenda's voice, the warm, direct, this is the accurate description voice, was number 1. Gary scored 91 points in the second seat. He gave his 5 answers in the organized, optimized route. I have found the correct path quality efficiently right the first time, nothing wasted. Combined total, 286 points, $20,000. Steve Harvey brought the check. He carried it to the center of the stage, and he stood in front of both of them, and he held it between them, and he said, I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to give you this check, and then I'm going to step out of the way because you do not need me. He said it in the warm, organized, I know what I am doing voice. He said, she said, he checks the phone, the full battery every morning, 29 years. He said, it takes 10 seconds. It seemed like the right thing to do. He said, that is love described from both sides. He said, from her side it is the full battery every morning. From his side it is 10 seconds. It seemed right. He said, both sides of that are true. Both sides of that are the same thing. He said, 29 years of 10 seconds that seemed right. He held the check between them. He said, $20,000 for the 10 seconds, 31 years of them. He said, spend some of it on something that is not 10 seconds. He said it with the warm, I want them to have a real thing voice. He said, take a trip, somewhere neither of you has been, book the nice hotel, the marriage has earned the nice hotel. He said, take the trip. He gave the check to Brenda. He said, and when you come back, he is going to check the phone. He said it with the warm, certain, this is simply accurate voice. Gary said, yes. He said it in the plain, organized, this is the arrangement voice. Yes, every night. Brenda looked at her husband. Said, I know. She said it with the warm, entirely specific, 29 years of knowing quality. I have always known. Gary said, I know you have. He said, I just did not know you were going to tell Steve Harvey about it. He said it in the warm, dry, I have been caught quality. Brenda said, he asked. She said it in the warm, entirely unrepentant, the survey came up voice. The category came up and he asked and I told him the true thing. She said, I always tell the true thing. Gary said, I know. He said, that is one of my favorite things about you. He said it in the plain, warm, this is simply accurate voice. I know you always tell the true thing, I just did not know the true thing was going to be my face on national television. The room gave him everything it had. Steve Harvey said, that face is in my top 5. He said it one more time in the warm, I am going to carry this voice. Top 5 in 14 years. He said, thank you both for being in this room today. He said it simply. Thank you for the 29 years and for the face and for the phone on the charger and for being exactly who you are in a room that was lucky to have you. The episode aired 6 weeks later. The clip spread in the specific, immediate, warm, multiple direction way of things that named more than one true thing in a way that was recognizable to a very large number of people. The first was the phone on the charger, the specific, invisible act that was immediately, broadly recognizable as the kind of act that love looked like when it had been going on long enough to become the texture of the life. Several people wrote about their specific version of the phone on the charger. The specific, invisible, 10-second thing their partner did that they had never described to anyone, because you did not describe the things that were simply how things were. Several said they had told their partner after watching what their version was. Several said their partner had the face, the Gary face, the being seen and glad and caught face. Several said it was the best conversation they had had in a year. One wrote, I have been waking up to a full battery for 11 years and I had never put it in words until I watched this woman put it in words and then I said it out loud to my husband and he had the face. He had the exact face. I showed him the clip. He laughed. He said, I did not know it meant that to you. I said, it has always meant that. He said, good. He said, I am going to keep doing it. I said, I know, I have always known. The second was Gary's explanation, the logistics manager's flat, organized, it takes 10 seconds it seemed like the right thing to do voice, which spread in the specific, this is how my partner would describe it way among people who recognized in Gary's voice, the voice of their own partner. Several said, my person also says things like this. It seemed like the right thing to do. It takes 10 seconds. Several said they had not known that this was love's voice when it did not know it was speaking. Several said they were going to listen for it differently now. The third was Steve Harvey saying, write that down. The specific instruction, directed at the room and through the room to everyone watching. The phone on the charger, the umbrella on the passenger seat, the coffee before the alarm, that is the love, not the grand gesture, not the speech. The 10 seconds every day for 29 years, write that down. Several people did. Several people wrote it down and kept it. Several said they were going to tell their partner's specific version the next time someone asked what their partner did that showed they loved them. Because the asking of the question and the answering of it was itself something, was the naming of the invisible act, was the giving of the act its full weight, which was the weight of 29 years, which was considerable. Brenda and Gary took the trip. They went to Portugal, which neither of them had been to, which Brenda had been wanting to go to for a decade and which she had described once in a passing, we should someday weigh, and which Gary had noted and which had been on the list of available things to do when the available thing was the trip to Portugal. They stayed in a hotel that was nicer than their usual hotel. They walked along the waterfront. They ate the food. They were for 5 days entirely in Portugal and entirely in each other's company with the specific 29-year, we know how to be in each other's company quality that the 29 years had built. On the last night at dinner, Gary looked at Brenda and said, "I checked your phone this morning." She said, "I know." She said, "It was fully charged." He said, "Yes." She said, "Thank you." She said it in the warm, direct, "I'm going to say thank you now" voice. He said, "You don't have to thank me." She said, "I know." She said, "I want to." She said, "For all of them." She said it in the plain, 29 years of them voice. He received it. He was quiet for a moment. He said, "You are welcome." He said it in the same plain voice. He said, "For all of them." She said, "Yes." He said, "For all of them." She said, "Yes." It was sufficient. It was the thing. The 10 seconds for 29 years and the thank you for all of them over dinner in Portugal in the nice hotel which the marriage had earned. There are things that people did for each other that never got seen. Gary checked Brenda's phone for 29 years and it got seen on a Wednesday afternoon in Nashville in a room with 300 people and Steve Harvey and the face that was in the top 5. And Steve Harvey said, "Write that down." And people wrote it down. And some of them told their person their version. And some of those people had the face. And some of them had the conversation. And the conversation was better than the grand gesture. The conversation was the full battery every morning. The conversation was the 10 seconds every day. The conversation was, "I have always known." The conversation was, "I know, I'm going to keep doing it." The conversation was, "Good, that is the love, write it down." If this story reached you, if you have a version of the phone on the charger, or if your person has the face, or if you have never told your person what their invisible act means to you, share this today. Leave a comment below and tell us your version, because this community holds these things and your voice here matters. And subscribe right now if you are not already with us, because every single week we come back with stories exactly like this one. Stories about the invisible acts. Stories about the faces that confirmed them. And stories about the man who checked the phone for 29 years and did not know she was going to tell Steve Harvey about it. And about the trip to Portugal. And the thank you for all of them. We will see you in the next one.